I have a friend that transitioned. I wonder if you guys know anyone that transitioned for the same reason as my friend. But his name was Alex. I think I can say that. And he decided to do one of the biggest mistakes in his life, which is to emigrate to Britain. And it's what happens when you go to Britain. You transition. He was invited to a office party. I think it was around Christmas. And he managed to have a talk with his boss after his boss had a few drinks. And his boss is the one that cracked the egg, basically. Told him that he's very happy with the work that he is putting in. And he almost didn't hire him. Because when he looked at the resume, he saw the word Alex and he thought that it's a girl. And had he knew that he is a man, he wouldn't have hired him because he needed women for the diversity quota. And it turns out that this is how a lot of bosses speak behind closed doors. Like, they're very honest with what they're doing. But this kind of shocked my Romanian friend. Because he realized that if the situation was reversed, if he was actually a woman, and the boss came up to her and said, yeah, if you were a guy, I would have never hired you, that would have been a lawsuit. Like, he could have made a lot of money out of that. And all he would have had to do back then, because like this was during the peak feminist moral panic, and all of he had to do would be to go to a newspaper like Jezebel, or to go to some activist group and stir up the shit, and then he would sue his company, and while he may not win in court, because obviously, you need witnesses and stuff, but chances are the company would have settled. And you'd have made a lot of money out of it. But because he's a guy, because he was a cisgender straight white man, he had no protection. There was no activist group that he could go to. There was no newspaper that would give a shit. And the lawsuit would have probably been thrown out. And so that's why he realized that he has to transition. Because as a straight white guy, he had no protection. But as a trans woman, all of a sudden, there are activist groups that give a shit. There are newspapers that care. And so he did. On paper only. He became a trans woman lesbian. And he explained to other Romanians, it's like, look, you don't lose anything, right? It's just your paperwork. Right? You change your pronouns, she, her. And either than that, you keep behaving the exact same way that you behave, and if they complain, you can point out that there is this thing called gender fluid. And so it doesn't matter. Like, the HR knows, you know that the HR knows that you know, but the law is the law. And so the HR knows that you can actually start shit with Jezebel. And that was pretty much it. Like, it's the Eastern European mindset. Like, you don't fight against the storm. You don't fight against the current. You bend like the blade of grass. And you do this thing called malicious compliance. In the Anglosphere, however, people didn't really do that. What people did is that, well, eventually they did push and push. And now they're actually getting what they wanted. And we went from the statement, it's okay to be white, to be considered a racist, bigoted statement, into being considered, actual legislation, I suppose. It is okay to be white, and if it's not okay, you can sue the company. So you have the New York Post saying that the U.S. Workplace Rights Agency leader urges white men to report discrimination. The head of the U.S. agency for enforcing workplace civil rights posted on social media, calling out, urging white men to come forward if they experience race or sex discrimination at work. I see a lot of leftists screaming about this on social media, but notice how they're not saying that if you're a black man, you're not allowed to do the same. Like, notice how when the Republicans come into power, they're not saying, yeah, like, women and black people, we're going to treat you the same way that leftists used to treat white men. The shoe is on the other foot now. No, basically what they're saying is that, well, civil rights is for everybody. Like, they're literally doing what the leftists were saying. And for some reason, this pisses off a lot of activists online. So the announcement is like this. Are you a white male who has experienced discrimination at work based on your race or sex? you may have a claim to recover money under federal civil rights laws. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission Chair Andreas Lucas, a vocal critic of DEI, wrote on Wednesday evening. The Post urged eligible workers to reach out to the agency as soon as possible and referred users to the agency's fact sheet on DEI-related discrimination for quote-unquote more information. Her post, viewed millions of times, was shared about 2 hours after the Vice President J.D. Vance posted an article where he said describes the evil DEI and its consequences, which also received millions of views. And the thing is with this DEI shit is that most people that I know were against it. And they were against it because it was a hateful ideology designed specifically to divide people. And no one was allowed to call it out because if you did, you got banned from social media. And so you ended up in a culture of fear where, like, well, everyone knew that everyone knows, but no one dare speak it out. So when you finally are allowed to speak it out, well, you get to see a lot of people say, yeah, it was bullshit. And it was so bullshit that the leftists themselves didn't like it. And so you need to wonder, well, who was this ideology for? Well, it was for the activist and the politician. Because, like, literally no one was genuinely benefiting from it. Like, even if you're a black person, right? Like, imagine a newspaper company that has, like, a diversity initiative to hire more black people. Do you think, like, they would hire black people from the ghetto? Or they would hire black people from an impoverished neighborhood? Like, no, they would still hire black people that were connected, that were hired based on nepotism, right? Like, black people that they know, which behaved and acted in a certain way that leftists wanted them to behave and act. And so, yeah, like, they would never have hired George Floyd, for instance. Like, can you imagine the Washington Post hiring someone like George Floyd when he was alive? And so, like, everyone knew that the DEI thing was a grift. But, you know, I guess, like, it gave a lot of leftists the power over other people. Like, you go online and you see someone breaking the taboos, and then you can just unperson them by reporting them. And so, like, because of that little amount of power, they wanted to put up with it. And this whole DEI shit started during the Occupy Wall Street movements. You had people basically saying that they're tired of the bankers playing a different game than everyone else. Like, if you have your business and you go bankrupt, you suffer the consequences. While if you make profit, you have to pay taxes and share the profit equitably with everyone else. Meanwhile, a bank, if they go bankrupt, they get to hit the reset button and the government bails them out. And so people didn't really like this shit. And they protested. And the response was to bombard the public with DEI. See, it's not the bank's fault. Like, the bank is fine. It's the white man's fault, right? So women are oppressed by the patriarchy. Black people are oppressed by white supremacy. And so people started arguing with that. And all of a sudden, all of the protests towards the banks, they evaporated. And now the banks all had rainbow colors. And they all had the leftist chants and slogans. Make it make sense. So I guess, yeah, like, the era is over because one of the worst things that happened in Europe is that this DEI shit isn't cultural, it's legal. Like, in Europe, they actually passed DEI legislation, especially in places like the UK. And so getting rid of it is a lot more difficult. But in the United States, it's more about the bureaucracy. It's like, how do we apply it? And if they decide to apply it equally to everyone, well, companies now will actually need to make sure that, well, they don't discriminate against anyone, including straight white men. Let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.